Hello friends, today we'll talk about the course of the Khilafat movement. What is meant by the course of the Khilafat movement? This means what all happened during the Khilafat movement. Now there are 11 points that you got to remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Meaning 11 important things that took place. Right? The first one. The first All India Khilafat conference was held in November 1919 in Delhi. Now, why was this held? It was held to remind the British government of the promises that they had made. That is, they had promised the Indian people that they would not take any measures leading to the dismemberment of Turkey, and the Turkish Sultanate will be maintained. So this conference was held for that reason. Now, who and all were part of this conference? The leading figures there were Maulana Shaukat Ali and Maulana Muhammad Ali Johar, and also Abdul Kalam Azad, and along with them Gandhi was also part of this conference. Now, what was decided during the conference? Let us have a look at it. Now, certain resolutions were drawn during the first All India Khilafat conference. Now, those resolutions were to boycott all the British goods and depend upon the local produce, in other words Swadeshi movement, then adopt a policy of non-cooperation with the British government, and abstain from all sorts of victory celebrations. Why? Because Great Britain had won the First World War, and Great Britain was part of the Triple Entente. So the Triple Entente countries were all celebrating their victory, and these victory celebrations were being held in all the colonies of Great Britain, including subcontinent. So they had decided to abstain, meaning to keep away from all the victory celebrations. Now, one thing that I wanted to highlight here is the issue of non-cooperation, and this was all part of passive resistance, meaning you don't openly fight with the British government, but you passively resist submitting to their rules and regulations. Now, this policy was proposed by Gandhi. He was a proponent of satyagraha, that is passive resistance, right? And also the Swaraj, that is self-rule. Now, here I'll talk a little about Gandhi and what were the important things that he's actually known for. He started a campaign against intouchability as soon as he came into politics, and this was one thing that Indians were facing, and it was damaging the society. So he started a campaign against intouchability. He also promoted cottage industries. That is, he made the people of India self-dependent instead of being dependent upon foreign goods and foreign industries. So he started promoting charkha. Charkha is actually the spinning wheel, which spins the cloth. So this he thought, or he told the people that this would result in their salvation. Okay, especially of the village people, because they would become self-dependent. Okay, and then charkha also became an important part of the Congress program later on. It also became a part of the Indian flag. If you look at this Indian flag, this is the picture of the Indian flag. The center portion, the blue color circle that you see, that's actually the charkha, okay, or the spinning wheel. He was also devoted to the cause of the Hindu-Muslim unity. That is one reason why he was always against the creation of Pakistan. Now let us look at the second event, important event that happened during the course. It was in December 1919. That is just a month later. The second conference, All India Khilafat Conference, was held, and this time it was held at Amritsar. Now in this conference, all the three parties, that is the Khilafat Committee, the Congress and the League, they were present at the meetings, and it was decided that all the three would work together in opposing the dismemberment of Turkey. And it was also decided that now Gandhi would be considered as a lead figure who would lead this movement. Okay, and although it was a very uphill task, but Gandhi had decided that he would stand in the forefront. Then, but from the events that were taking place, it was very evident that the British government were not in a mood of letting Turkey go, because Maulana Muhammad Ali had recently visited Great Britain, and he tried his level best to persuade them and to show them, in the importance of keeping the territorial boundaries of Turkey intact, but they were not persuaded by his arguments. Moving on to the next event in January 1920, that is the next month immediately after December. In the next month, January 1920, a deputation was sent to see the Viceroy to convince him not to treat Turkey unfairly, And in February 1922, another delegation was sent again to persuade the Western powers not to treat Turkey the way they were treating Germany and other powers that had lost the First World War. But during that time itself, the Treaty of Savra was announced, and the terms of that treaty were very, very unjust for Turkey, and it was a great setback for the people, emotional setback for the people of the subcontinent. Now let's just look at the terms of the Treaty of Savra. So the Treaty of Savra was proclaimed in the year 1920. So you got to remember the year. What all happened as a result, or what were the terms of the treaty? The Ottoman Empire would be split up or would be dismembered, which was being feared by the people of the subcontinent. And then the Middle Eastern territories would be snatched away from it. And what Middle Eastern territories are we talking about? Those territories which are very close to the hearts of the Muslims living in the subcontinent, Makkah, Medina, Palestine. They were all taken away from Turkey and given in the hands of the League of Nations, or in control of the League of Nations. What is League of Nations? It was a body that was formed after the First World War in order to maintain peace in the world, like how we today have United Nations. At that time it was the League of Nations. Okay. Now the League of Nations, it gave those territories under the care of Great Britain and France. Alright, meaning those territories became mandates of Great Britain and France. Then the Turkish land, whichever Turkish territories were there in Europe, they were given under the control of Greece, and Turkey retained only a small piece of land just around Istanbul. Then in 1923, this Treaty of Savra, it was revised, and a Treaty of Lausanne was proclaimed. According to this treaty, this treaty recognized the boundaries of the modern state of Turkey. But the Middle Eastern territories, or the areas which Turkey previously had, they were never given back to Turkey. Moving on to the next event, on 22nd of June 1920, that is just a few months after the introduction of the Treaty of Savra. Now just imagine what would have happened after the introduction of such an unjust treaty, when the people were so much emotionally attached and they were, fighting for the rights of the Turkish Empire. They got agitated. There were mass demonstrations in the subcontinent. Gandhi, who was at the forefront of the Khilafat movement, he announced that he started rallying all across the country in support of the Khilafat movement. And he also announced to the British government that if they impose these terms on Turkey, then on the 1st of August they would begin a movement of non-cooperation throughout India. Now, what was this movement of non-cooperation? Let's have a look at it. It was unanimously decided during those times that they would surrender their titles and resign from all the local bodies, meaning no person would be in the government, and they would withdraw their children from the government schools. They will boycott all the British courts. They would refuse to volunteer to join the armed forces, and they will boycott the foreign goods, and they will refuse to stand for elections also. So this was moving towards a movement of civil disobedience, meaning you start disobeying the master of the land. Then during that time, we know when all these demonstrations were happening, the Prince of Wales visited India in Bombay in 1921, but he was greeted with mass demonstrations. And in order to suppress those demonstrations, the British government, they began a policy of repression, which resulted in the killing of around 53 people. Okay, so there was all chaos. It was very chaotic at that time, and a number of arrests took place. Around 30,000 people were put behind jails at that time. Now from 22nd June onwards, the story continues, and we move on to August 1920, where an important event takes place, and that's the Hijrat movement. What was the Hijrat movement? Let's have a look at it. So the Hijrat movement. Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, Maulana Abdul Bari, Maulana Muhammad Ali Johar, Maulana Abdul Majid Sindhi, all of them, they issued a fatwa. And what was that fatwa? Fatwa is actually a legal opinion that that Maulanas or religious scholars, they give on religious matters. So they issued a fatwa that since India had become a Darul Harb, meaning a place of war, so people or the Muslims of that area should start to migrate to a place of peace. And for them, that place of peace was Afghanistan. Darul Aman was Afghanistan. So, with their speeches and with their fatwa, this motivated a lot many people, especially in the northern part, that is in Sindh and northwestern frontier, where the Khilafat movement was a little differently perceived, meaning they started to denounce the English culture completely and adopted Islamic values and changed their lifestyle completely. So those were the people, who around 18,000 Muslims, they started to migrate from India to Afghanistan. And in doing so, they left their homes, they left their possessions, their businesses, everything, and they took with them only their families, their children, their parents, etc. And they were told that the Afghan government would welcome them open-heartedly. But the reverse happened. When they reached the Afghan borders, what happened is the Afghan government forcibly sent them back. So when they went back, they were in a miserable condition. They had lost everything. They had lost their jobs, their homes, their possessions, their wealth, their businesses. Everything was taken away from them because the other people who were in the subcontinent, they had taken over their possessions. So we can say that Hijrat movement was a grossly miscalculated event in history. So moving on the 8th of July 1921, the final and the third Khilafat conference was held, and in this conference the same points of non-cooperation, they were reiterated, like the Muslims will not attend British schools, they will not serve in the police or the army, they will give up all their titles, etc. And when such strong measures were coming from the side of the Muslims, the British government, they started a policy of repression, and they arrested many of the people. Ali brothers also got arrested. Then moving on November 1921, riots broke out all over India, including Nilambur, Tirur, and the riots, they started, creating chaos throughout India. So in February 1922, an event occurred, which is very very important, and it's called as the Chauri Chaura incident. What was the Chauri Chaura incident? Let's have a look at it. So coming on to the Chauri Chaura incident, it took place in February 1922. The date is important. Where is Chauri Chaura? It is in a district which is called as Gorakhpur in the province of Uttar Pradesh. Now, what happened during that incident? Because people all over India, they were agitated. They killed around 21 policemen, and this was a shock for Gandhi, who was in favor of non-violence methods and measures, and he was a proponent of passive resistance. So when he saw that his non-cooperation policy had resulted in agitating the entire crowd in India, so he immediately called off the non-cooperation movement. And this calling off of this non-cooperation movement was so abrupt that it took the entire Muslim people, the Muslim leaders, by surprise. And not only were they surprised, even the Congress Hindu leaders, they were also surprised. This resulted in when the British saw that Gandhi's support had declined and he had withdrawn his support from this movement, they arrested him, and for starting off this campaign of civil disobedience, and he was sentenced to prison for around 6 years. Then moving on, in 1922, the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, he was deprived of power. He was Muhammad VI, and he was deprived of power. Then just 2 years later, in 1924, Kemal Ataturk, he came in and he abolished the Turkish Empire or the Ottoman Empire completely. So you see, there were so many factors within Turkey itself, the Ottoman Empire itself, which resulted in its demise. And no matter what the Muslims of the subcontinent did in order to support the integrity of the entire Ottoman Empire, nothing could stop the Ottoman Empire from meeting its fate. So this was it for today. And in my next lesson, we'll be talking about reasons for the failure of the Khilafat movement and what happened after it. So do stay tuned. And if this video was helpful for you, give me a thumbs up, because that keeps me motivated. Until my next video, I'm Nida Umar signing off. And all of you, take care of yourselves. Till then, bye bye.